Welcome to the Mom and podcast, the podcast that helps you make your ellipses count. You know, all the dots that come after I am a mom and. I'm Missy Stevens, mom and writer, foster care advocate, and today, just a sad, angry, not quite in my right mind lady.
Agreed. And I am Susanne Kerns, mom and writer, LGBTQ and sex ed advocate. And today, I think in the second stage of grief, I think that's anger. I'm also, I jump sometimes to like the fifth, which I think is depression, and then a little bit of denial. I'm not taking a straight line basically through the stages. I'm bouncy.
Well, and I think that we won't do a 5 stages of grief podcast, but I don't even think those are really like true grief. That's not accurate. Like it doesn't go linearly, and it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff to it.
Yes, it's complicated.
It's complicated, as is everything right now. And so last week, we sat down and we recorded this episode all about our upcoming new season and how we were going to be shifting our conversations more from career to what impacts moms in midlife, especially some of the menopause stuff we're both dealing with.
And then the election happened and we said, oh, well, that was a fun recording. Let's just throw that in the garbage. Because a lot has changed. A lot has changed, and probably more in a lot of your lives than are impacting Missy and I in our places of privileged lives. And we acknowledge that. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff in our little lives that are being impacted too. So we're hearing it from all of our friends. They want to know like what's next, what's now. And honestly, as welcoming as we like to be, there's probably gonna be a lot of listeners that maybe I can't imagine you've gotten this far in listening to us and not knowing where we stand politically and values wise, especially since I start every episode by saying that I am an LGBTQ and sex ed advocate. Right. But we want this to be a safe place for people like us. We want this to be a safe place for people who share the values of kindness and love and dignity and respect for all, and anti-racism, and not just being allies, but being
accomplices. That's my favorite thing I've heard lately is it's too late to be an ally. Now you have to be an accomplice.
Yes. So this is our motivation session for our new series, our new season. It's not just going to be moms in midlife and menopause. Right. It's going to be moms in midlife, any kind of moms who want to become accomplices for all of the things that are likely going to be impacted by a Trump presidency. So if there are those of you who voted for Trump, this may not be the place for you.
May not. If you want to hang around and learn some things and listen, I mean, we're happy to have you. But we're not going to argue with you or engage if things get ugly. And this really may not be the place if that's where you want to spend your time.
Yes. Things are going to be getting real here for the next season of the Mom and podcast. In fact, we're trying to figure out if it needs to be called Mom and resistance. Mom and
what the fuck?
What the
Can
fuck?
we call it that? Mom and what the fuck?
Patriarchy, whatever it needs to be.
Yeah.
So, we're sifting through our topics right now, making sure that we are focusing on ways that you, as a mom, especially stay-at-home moms who have the privilege of, I don't want to say extra time because that is by far not true, but
flexibility,
a little bit of time flexibility in the sense of if there is a call to go do something during what would be typically a 9 to 5 work day, you may have an ability to do that easier than someone who has to actually take off time or request that PTO from a job. Whereas you might be able to shove a kid into a stroller or do something during a weekday that others are not able to do. So we want to make sure we are fighting for your rights, for your family's rights, your kids' rights, especially those daughters' rights, as the case may be. Well, let's talk about some of the topics that we're thinking of moving forward. And we're lining up guests for these right now. We will probably be finishing up with the couple of episodes that we have in the queue that we've already
Hmm.
recorded for the next couple of weeks, and then starting fresh. I'm guessing it will be early in December. So there's time for you to raise your hand if you think that you would be an amazing guest, or if you know someone who'd be an amazing guest, or if there's a topic that you are interested in that you want to make sure that we are looking for experts to come talk about those.
Yeah. So I think some of the things we're thinking about talking about include the mass deportations. What does that mean? What does that look like? How will that impact the foster community and other communities? And how it will directly impact all of our lives, even if we think it will not. So we're definitely looking for experts in that area. And that's another thing. I don't want to like mess up our flow here, but I
Go
think
for
a
it.
lot of what we're looking to have happen is have people come on and we'll facilitate somewhat of an interview, but we're really prepared to just be listening. We will be much like the rest of our audience, letting people tell us their story and what they're doing, and then how we can support them, whether it's through money or actions or all of the above. So we are looking for those people who want to come on and tell their story and let us and you listen. Um,
Yes. And we're balancing that with the idea that there's going to be a lot of people who rightfully so are like, no, white ladies, y'all go do your own work and research. I don't want to come there and have to tell you what to do. We understand that is a very valid, understandable place to be for
Completely.
many people. But I think there are a lot of people who are like, they're at the stage where they haven't been fully burned, I guess, yet, and they still are willing to come and share. And we're going to be doing that work ourselves, but for the people who are still in a place where they're willing to come and tell us their stories, tell us how we can all help, we welcome them and their
Yeah.
voices.
Yeah. So if you know someone doing the work in any of these areas we mentioned, if there's somebody you follow that you really trust, please introduce us to them. We'd love to invite them to come on.
Yes. And obviously, a subject near and dear to my heart, LGBTQ rights. I'm disgusted by the hundreds of millions of dollars that were spent specifically on anti-trans ads
Hmm.
in this campaign. It's it's heartbreaking. In Texas, we feel it very deeply because we are already, I just saw a map the other day, we'll have to share it, of like the most dangerous states
Hmm.
for trans and LGBTQ, gay, queer
Hmm.
communities. And Florida had been the only one that was like this deep maroon, like it wasn't even red anymore. It was like
Hmm.
blood red. And now Texas has become a don't even travel there state for trans communities, which
Yeah.
is just, it's heartbreaking, especially because I know that there are
Horrifying.
welcoming spaces, obviously, within Austin,
Sure.
within other areas of Texas. But in order to get to those safe spaces, you got to go through an awful lot of not safe. I feel that's very, very much how people are feeling about Texas and
Hmm.
heck, a lot of the country right now. So, anyway, I want to talk about that, how that impacts equity policies. We're going to talk a little bit about school too, as well, but there's protections that are in place in cities and in schools where, no place for hate, which,
Hmm.
especially if they get funding from the federal side, could be going away. And how can
Right.
we help back those up in our
Hmm.
own way?
Hmm.
And then there's women's rights, women's reproductive rights. Should we be stockpiling birth control? Should we be
Yeah.
stockpiling Plan B?
And the
What the
little that
hell?
I have learned so far tells me, yeah, you should absolutely. I think Plan B has a 4 month, the 4 year, not
Hmm.
4 month, 4 year shelf life.
Okay, now I heard
Um,
2 years, so we're gonna double check that.
yeah, so we do need to check that. There's a couple different pills and medicines, and one does have a shorter shelf life, and one has a quite long one. Um, so we can post that in show notes for
When we
any
get to
actual
that episode,
information.
we will
But
give you all the information.
yeah, you need to. I have heard you need to get it now. You need to go get vaccines if you're on the fence about some of them. Go find out more and then go get it because you really might not be able to get it.
My
Uh,
husband's doing the shingles today. I was like, you better hurry because you have to
I
get
know
the
I
next
just
one in
scheduled
six
my second
months.
one. Yeah, I scheduled my second one, and I just FYI, next week I might not feel great one day.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
you know, these are things that we need to look into and understand what we need to do. And
Yeah.
it sounds very, I have a lot of people in my life who don't like the prep and planning talk. It makes them really nervous and it makes them
Mhm.
sad. And they want to just focus on being light and love. You and I are both Enneagram nines, so we definitely already operate in this place of being both. We can
Yes.
be that light and love, and we can be the realistic prepper planners, and we can see both sides of that. And I just think it's so important to have all of this information and to sit with it and think about the uncomfortable stuff and stock up on your birth control and get your shots and do these things that sounds very gloom and doom, but should we reach a point where we can't access this stuff anymore, it's good to have a plan.
And best case scenario, I really hope we're overreacting and,
That's what I keep saying.
and that we're in our own little echo chambers of
Hmm.
hearing all these things and getting swept up
Hmm.
in it. I would be so thrilled that in, a year from now that I can come back and be like, "Oh, I was being so silly." It's like when I was washing all my groceries during COVID with the bleach wipes. So
Yeah, I really do hope, and I have told this to a couple of people in my life. I hope that I am wrong. I
yeah.
hope that some of you who have always laughed at me when I try to be serious in any way, I hope that you can laugh at me again and say you took it too far. Once again, you overreacted. That's what I hope. That is the best case scenario in all of this, but I have a lot of evidence to the contrary. And
Yeah.
I think we'd be fools not to look at what could happen. I mean, already this week, some things have been put in place that are terrifying. So,
Yes. So we'll have some people come on and get down to the nitty gritty and the truth of what you should be worrying about, what you shouldn't be worrying about, what are some things that you
right.
can do.
Like to talk about where can you donate money that makes sense and where can you get involved and what does that look like? And yeah,
Yes.
how do you do things if you are at home with a bunch of little kids? It's really hard to get out sometimes. So what can you do from home? We're going to find those kinds of things out too.
Yeah. And then there's school funding. And in fact, I ran into this morning because I am the co-chair of our school health advisory council, which we make decisions about things around kids' health in our school district and policies. And we make recommendations to the school board about those. And, that's everything from sex ed to getting breast exams for teachers to, setting up vaccine clinics for kids to the lunches. And one of my favorite presentations every year, we are so fortunate in Austin ISD to have the most amazing culinary program. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
yeah, you do.
they have gardens on site. They do a lot of fresh food, literally from their own gardens of the schools. They source a lot of local stuff. They source a lot of organic stuff. And we have that presentation coming up this month. And I'm like, do we need to ask them about what happens when we lose federal funding? If and when
Yeah.
we lose federal funding there's a lot of schools that all the meals are paid for through federal
Hmm.
dollars
Hmm.
for schools that kids do not have the money for those meals. I mean, we do breakfast, lunch, and even they call it like a supper or an after school snack
Hmm.
or whatever. So to get these kids through the day, there's a certain portion of even the meals that are paid for
Hmm.
that on top of that, like I think that I can't remember exactly how much we paid. Like if we pay $1.50 or whatever, the other
Right.
dollar or whatever is paid through federal funds. So even kids who are
Hmm.
paying, quote unquote, paying for their lunches, I think a portion of that is also
Yes.
funded federally. So that has a lot of implications as people are talking about defunding the Department of Education,
Hmm.
federal funding for different schools. It may not be all schools, but you know what? Texas likes to pick on Austin, so I'm pretty sure Trump would like to pick on Austin and blue cities as well. So
I'm sure.
that's a real
Sure.
potential issue. Again, I the people that I was like, oh, should we be talking about this in the next meeting? They're like, okay, we don't want to get everybody freaked out. We just want to talk about the amazing stuff the school program's doing now. We can worry about that later. And it probably is. We can worry about it later, but like, are there any
Not much
protections that we
later.
need to put in place? I know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, there's a lot of things around school funding that you may not even know
Well, and
that
there's a
your
lot of
school is
people.
receiving a lot of federal funding.
Yeah. And a lot of people are really worked up about boys and girls sports.
Hmm.
And I think what you need to be thinking about is how do we ensure that there continues to even be girl sports? If there's no funding and there's no Title IX, there are no girl sports.
Hmm.
Um, there's this is all very nuanced, and I would say the majority of people who voted for Trump don't do nuance, but it's time to like really dig in. It is multi-layered, and once the Department of Education is gone, a lot of other stuff has gone with it.
Hmm.
We have to think about it. I don't like to think about
Yep.
it, but we have to.
Yep, yep, yep. And one thing I also want to bring up there for a lot of the funding, I believe one of our friends in our text list was even saying, "Oh, I wanted to see like what portion of my school's budget is federal funding and
Right.
what that covers." And a lot of it is for special education,
Hmm.
kids with special needs, kids who need additional access to schools.
Yep.
So those are the programs also that are going to be hit considerably and
Right.
are going to need some safety nets around that.
As with
Or,
any authoritarian regime, the first to go, the first to be attacked are always those who are the most at risk and
yeah,
the most marginalized. So anybody who needs extra help or funding for any reason is going to find that lacking.
yeah.
Um,
Especially things that he's already said publicly, acted out and mimed
mhm,
publicly.
mhm,
You know where his feelings lie there. I will
mhm.
have you Google the quote that I believe it was his brother, a quote that Trump said about his own nephew who
Yes.
has special needs
Yep.
and how he felt that financially it just wasn't even worth helping with those
Yeah. Why
anymore.
bother?
Why
Yeah.
bother? So if he's saying that about his own family,
Right.
don't think that he's going to be caring about school funding to make sure that
No.
kids have equal access to education. So
No.
yeah, we are. What stage of the grieving process did that just take us all
I mean,
into?
I'm just telling you, I think I'm going to spend the majority of my time in anger. I have met a lot of resistance from a lot of people in my life in regards to that anger. I know that everyone operates differently. I know that anger can be very depleting for some, and I know that anger can really, it can really get in and start to break you down. I feel like I have a really healthy relationship with my anger. And I think that even those who are afraid of their anger maybe need to spend some time with it and sit in it because if you're feeling it, it's valid. And yeah, I have lots of strong feelings, but the
Yes.
strongest one at the moment is anger.
Isn't that the
But
Enneagram trait too? Is the anger?
yeah, yeah, that's like our that opposite side. We don't really like it. Like we don't like conflict. Like conflict
Yes.
is not our thing, and I still
Except for this next season where we're
right.
gonna just
And I think that's the other thing because we are definitely social justice means a lot to
yes.
us, and so I think I'm going to lean into that anger. The thing I keep saying is we can be kind without being nice, and
Oh,
we can help others and focus on what are the kind things to do out in the world. But we can also have that anger because it serves us. It's going to keep motivating us. And that's why we have to keep paying attention to what's happening, even when we want to put our heads in the sand, because if we don't know how bad it is or how real it could get, then, well, we're not going to be able to help appropriately.
yes.
Um,
All right. Well, okay. So that lets y'all know what we're going to be focusing on here in our next
yeah.
season. So hopefully you are here to join us and to gain some information. We're going to try to make it real simple. It's going to be serious, but with us,
Mhm.
hopefully it'll still also be fun and loving and
Loving. It'll be
and
kind.
love. It'll be kind,
It
maybe
might
not
not always be nice.
nice. But we usually end all of our episodes with a look, listen, learns.
Yeah.
But I think both of us are look, listening, and learning that we, as white women and as a country, have once again really let down Black women.
Hmm.
And I I am we're encouraging ourselves and we are encouraging you all to go do some work in training your algorithms to follow some
Hmm.
Black women and women of color so you are hearing their voices. Again, not because they are here to teach you, it is not their job to teach you, but you learn some lessons from you just immersing yourself in their words and hearing what is important to them, what their
Yeah.
lives are like, how
I
things
think
are
it's
impacting
time,
them.
like really past time, obviously, but it's time to get comfortable with that uncomfortableness. Like when you hear someone say, "We don't trust white women, you have failed us," your gut reaction probably is not, "You are correct, that is what we did, and I'm so
Mhm.
sorry." Your gut reaction is probably like, "Ooh, either not me, that wasn't me," or "What are you talking about? That's not real." I've seen a lot of white women going, "That's not a thing. That's not real, is it?" So it's time to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and just listen because there's a lot for us all to unlearn and think about how we go forward.
And there are a lot of amazing voices, organization, people who run organizations, content creators, all kinds of people out there. Your algorithm will do the work once you follow
Yeah.
a couple or follow
Yeah.
someone that you really like and see who they follow and
Right.
follow them. One I think is like the most basic white lady follow. I think is Lovey. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are already familiar with her, but I think that that's just like a place to start that you are probably already following, but maybe you zip by her sometimes. Don't scroll past. Do
No.
some
I
listening.
trust Lovey and I trust if she is talking about someone that she has vetted that she's not giving us, half-baked information. And she's livid, rightfully so. So there is a lot to learn there. And there is a ton of content that is recent within the past 6 days. New content with new information or or telling us the same fucking thing she's been telling us for years.
Yeah.
But there's a lot there. She has a great place to start and it can
Yeah.
help you figure out where to go from there. And I also think we want to talk about where we're getting our news. Social media has its place and it's also an echo chamber in a lot of ways. And also, there will possibly come a time when it doesn't exist in the form that we're used to it existing now. All of our news is at risk, all of our media is at risk. It's very likely going to become something like state run media. There's already, I mean, you saw it the day of the election, you saw large media sources and large companies signaling their allegiance to this administration because they are afraid. They are afraid if they don't support it, they will not have money. And money is what makes this all go around. And we will not be able to trust those media sources. So we will be looking at where trustworthy news sources are. It has been recommended to me by someone closely related to this field that we look at news out of Europe and out of Singapore. And we'll have to figure out how we continue to get that information when it might be harder to access it via the internet.
Or
But for
even through
now,
traditional channels. I mean, he's
right,
already talked about trying to revoke licenses,
right,
FCC
right.
licenses
So
from
it's going to
TV
get
networks.
tricky. So we're going to be relying on people. One of those people who I know we've talked about women of color, but a really wise white woman that we follow that I think a lot of you may already be following is Heather Cox Richardson. She puts out a newsletter every day. She writes something. You can find her on YouTube. You can find her on the socials. But she provides historical background information. She really just lays out facts and helps you understand the patterns at play here and what has happened before and what we're seeing, the similarities we're seeing and what could happen now. She's a very calming presence. Even though I couldn't read her for the first few days after the election, I needed to need to hibernate and just not for. But as soon as I was ready, I went right back to her because, in spite of the fact that often what she's telling you is kind of scary, she's this calming presence. So I think she's a
Yes.
great place for now while we can still access her.
And on the mom front, there are some great groups that you should be paying attention to, especially there's one called Black Mamas Matter
Yeah.
Alliance. Black maternal health is a huge issue, and it is going to be even more so as women's health care gets into an even darker place than it is now. So,
Mhm.
would encourage you to follow that group. Another interesting podcast is Know Better, Do Better
Yeah.
by Marie Beecham. And so that's another one. So just a few things. And of course, all the political figures that we know and love. Stacey Abrams. Why am I blanking on her name?
Alexandria
Thank
Ocasio-Cortez is
you,
she's
Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. Yes.
doing some really interesting work right now because she's not coming on and saying, here's what you need to be doing. She's also just talking about how do we get here? What in our history led to here? What are the facts at play now? And doing just sort of some comforting, I
Hmm.
guess, but in this shape of like, yes, I will, here's how you find comfort in now, and then here's how because you're sustaining yourself so you can go do the work. Um,
Yes.
but she's been
And
encouraging to listen to.
there's so many. And so, yeah, we'll put some in the show notes. So to make it really
Yeah.
easy for you, just click over it, follow, like let your algorithm do the work, or even better than letting the algorithm do the work, go in and see who the people who you respect follow
Mhm.
and follow some of them and share it with us some of the voices that
Yeah.
you like to hear. We want to make sure we're amplifying those as well.
Yeah. And if you are closely connected to anyone doing work in any of these arenas, please, please introduce us to them. And we hope to have them on.
All right.
So I think
I
that's
think
it.
that's it. We're just major downers today, but
I felt like that a lot. Or like, let me just be the biggest Debbie Downer of the Debbie Downers. I guess that's the role I'm going to play right now in my world is the realist.
yeah, I was gonna say you're the Debbie realist.
Hmm. Hmm.
We've been here before, but the guardrails are gone this time. So we just need to make sure that we're being smart. We're protecting ourselves. We're protecting our people. We're protecting communities that are not our people,
Yeah.
but that still need to be protected. So,
And that can't protect themselves or speak up for themselves.
yes. Here we
Well,
go. For the next few
yeah.
weeks, like we said, we're going to be running some of our episodes that are in the queue already
Yeah.
that are more career focused.
Mom
Um,
and originals.
Mom and OG. And then we'll probably be starting in December to give us some nice runway up until the inauguration. So if you need to start doing some stuff ahead of time, we'll have those things in your inbox.
Yeah. And maybe we'll have some fun stuff too, like where to shop for the holidays, because I guess we're having the holidays no matter what. Like, I don't feel like having the holidays at this moment, but
Ugh,
I guess it's happening. But, there's a lot of great Black and women owned businesses
queer
where you can do your
owned.
shopping
Yep.
and put your money into the economy that way. So maybe we'll do some fun episode, like a fun episode about shopping and,
Yes. And
yeah.
there's also a lot of words out there now about the stores we do not want to be shopping at. As far
Hmm.
as if you
Hmm.
want your money to be going towards organizations and companies that
That aren't fascists.
that use their money in a way that supports your values. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
painful because God, I
Oh,
love Amazon Prime.
I mean, we all do. They have got us all by the ovaries and enough, enough. Like, we have to plan better and know that we might have to wait a day or two for our item, which
Oh,
I just had a thought and I'm not going to say it out loud.
oh no. I'll edit
I'll
it
say it to you
out.
later. I'll say it to you later. I don't know. It just was gloom and doom. I've been gloomy and doomy enough.
Okay, we'll take it offline
I
then.
keep saying things and Mark's like, "Oh my God." One of our neighbors, like-minded neighbor, totally like was at their house commiserating. But I said a very not nice thing, and he was like, "Oh, that wasn't very nice." And I was like, "The gloves are off, friend. Like, I am tired of being nice."
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've said this on social media, and I've said it to you, and I've said it to several people, but I just really feel like this concept of the high road was something developed to oppress marginalized communities. And I
Hmm.
understand why many years ago Michelle Obama stood up and said, when they go low, we go high. I know why she said that. I understand what she was accomplishing with that and why that needed to be said by her in that moment. But I've just been thinking a ton about the high road, and I don't feel like that is necessarily the place we need to be dwelling. Back to being kind without being nice.
Hmm. It's not
And
our
I,
job to make people who make decisions that are counter to the goodness of the country feel comfortable with that.
right, exactly. And I am a firstborn child, people pleaser, raised in the church. Was raised to be a good girl. I still have a lot of people in my life who are astounded when I am not saying the nicey nice, making the nice things. And we just can't anymore. We tried it. We operated that way a long time, and look where it got us. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm going to try not to say horrible, mean, ugly things out loud, but I don't promise not to think them. And I also don't promise not to lean into that anger and
We're
fight.
no longer here to make you feel comfortable with your decisions.
Nope. Your comfort is your business, not mine.
And on that note,
have a great day, y'all. Bye.
Oh, I love it. All right. So go look at the show notes, y'all. We're going to have some great
Which are
links
going to be
of people that you can
crazy.
follow.
How am I
The
even
show
going to
notes are
write
going to
show
be
notes for this?
amazing. It's just going to be an angry picture of Missy.
Yeah, I don't know. The show notes might make sense. I don't make any promises on that front either.
Oh, my goodness. No. Well, we're in this together,
All right.
y'all.
Yep.
If you're feeling alone, you are not.
No.
We
And
are
we
here with
appreciate you.
you. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Have as good a week as you can, y'all.
That's right. That's right.
As
Bye.
the music plays us out.
We have the happiest music ever.
We do. Do we need to change our theme music?
Maybe.
Or maybe we just slow it down.
No, it is the most cheerful pop, like this.
Yeah, I'm going to see if we can slow it down.
Maybe. Oh, God. All right.
Stopping the record.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Mom and ... podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you know someone else who could benefit from the episode, please be sure and share it with them. And while we're begging, please subscribe and rate us wherever it is you listen to podcasts. You can find links to all the things we discussed today in our show notes or over at our website, momandpodcast.com, with the A-N-D spelled out. In between shows, find us over at the socials, including our private Mom and Community Facebook group. The links to that group and all of our socials can be found at momandpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you more than you know. Now go out there and make your ellipses count.